Jai Hind and very good afternoon to all the participants. We are here under the Train the Trainer lecture series. This is the second session after the first session that was on 8th of April, and the session was taken by Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir. In the same series today we have the session second, which is on teaching, learning and evaluation, as it has evolved in the era of digital transformation. The speaker of this session is Dr. Nikhil Srivastava, who is Dean and Principal of Faculty of Dental Sciences. A brief about Dr. Nikhil Srivastava is, he is working as a head of pediatric dentistry as well as Dean and Principal of Faculty of Dental Sciences. He has published near about 100 research papers with an H index of 22 and more than 1300 citation. He is also the international advisor of Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons, Glasgow, UK. He has been recently awarded with the Academics of the Year by the Famland Excellence in Dentistry Award. He is also appointed as a board member of Scientific Committee, International Association of Pediatric Dentistry. There are more achievements that Dr. Nikhil has received. List is very long, so we have taken a brief introduction about him. Now I request Dr. Nikhil to please continue with the session. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Nikhil, for introducing me to my own people. Jai Hind and very good afternoon, VC sir and all the learned HOIs, HODs, my fellow friends in the Subharti University. I will start my presentation with this beautiful quote, which is extremely pertinent to the teaching learning. Speak in such a way that others love to listen to you, and listen in such a way that others love to speak to you. Well, training the trainers, the Lecturette series, I must express my gratitude to Vice Chancellor Sir for conceiving and implementing the idea of starting this Train the Trainer series. But then here the question is, who are the trainees and who are the trainers? So we are the trainee and we are the trainers. So I think, in my opinion, this particular program is training of the trainers, training by the trainers and training for the trainers. So in other words, we can call it as mutual training, or in technical language we can call it as reciprocal training, because we get to learn from each other. The topic, why this is so important. Now we have to understand these things, that apart from education college where we get a degree of Master of Education, Bachelor of Education, none of us have got any training to become a teacher. So we are teacher by, have got a training to become a clinician. Sir has also got a training for becoming a maxillofacial surgeon, and then engineers and lawyers. But then we have never got any proper training to become a teacher. But then being a professional, becoming into a professional, so that is why there is a need to have these kind of programs, including the FDPs and training the trainers, so that we can at least update ourselves how to go about it. The teaching in the 21st century is entirely different from what used to be in 20th century. In 20th century there was a monologue. Teacher used to come in the classes, they used to deliver the lecture, whether you understand or not, it was immaterial. But now it has become very, very interactive. So it is a need of the hour for all of us to train ourselves to become a better teacher. The topic given to me is a teaching, learning and evaluation, particularly in the era of digital transformation. It is my personal experience in the last 26 years where I have been into active teaching, that even in the era of digital transformation, teaching has not changed much. Learning has not changed much. The only thing, the platform has changed. Earlier we were didactic, now we have become online, virtual. But the same pattern is all remain the same, whether you teach in the physical mode or you teach in the online mode, the basic principles will remain the same. So these are the learning objectives towards the end of my 45 minutes presentation. We all will be, as I said, that I don't find it capable enough to train my fellow colleagues who are the deans and HOIs. But yes, most of the things we all already know. These are the learning objectives, the fundamental of effective teachings, type and mode of learning, evaluation process, and then e-learning platform, what we have it, particularly post-COVID. And I shall be covering my presentation in these following 4 parts: the teaching, learning, evaluation, and the digital transformation era. So what is teaching? Now we all know it's a process of engaging and interacting the students so that they become knowledgeable, skilled, and they develop the values and attitude. This is a very simple definition of a teaching. Who is a teacher? The person who is involved in the practice of teaching. Now this quote we have been reading all around, which says that a mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates, but the great teacher inspires. Now this is the bottom line. In today's era, until the students are motivated, it is immaterial how good are we a teacher. We have to motivate so that they can at least learn from us. So that is the most important thing. How it is done, we will just discuss in future slides. So as per the literature, there are two classifications of teaching methodology. One, which is the conventional kind of teaching, which says the teacher is controlled. We take lectures in the classes or in the labs, we do demonstrations, some historical things. Interactive, where we, instead of taking direct lectures, we engage in the question answer session, group discussions, seminars, panel discussions, etc. And then you have a learning control, which is a self-directed learning. Now last time Vijay sir was emphasizing that we have to educate, or we have to encourage our students as well as teachers to visit the library, visit the lab. Now Manoj must be having the computer lab also. So that is kind of learning control with the self-learning kind of things, which happens. The group control is usually a surveys, field works, role play, and problem-based learning, especially in the medical field. And then we have again in the health sciences, the clinical base, which is where the bedside learning happens in the medical college and nursing college and physiotherapy college. The chairside learning happens in dental college along with the case presentation and all. Second classification is slightly modified. The interactive discussion base is all okay. The blended pedagogy or the flipped classes, it is a mode of online learning along with offline learning. And then the Bloom base, which is basically it is meant for the students who are pursuing post-graduation or PhD and MPhils, which actually involve all the three domains of learning. We know all these things, the cognitive and the psychomotor and the affective domains. And then we have a hierarchical system, which is a modified Bloom's taxonomy in 2001, where first you have to remember, then understand, then apply this knowledge, analyze it, evaluate, and then create the outcome. So this is another classification of teaching methodology. Now this is a very interesting slide which I have come across, which is the guiding principle how to teach. Now it says that you have to involve all the five senses in effective teaching. Sight, by seeing, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. Obviously these things are not applicable in all the streams. But then it says that, okay, by seeing, the students get to learn or perceive almost 75%. But when you speak also, then the 30% is added. So in total, if you speak and the students listen also and see also, so almost the perception is 88%. So in other words, we can call it as the audio-visual presentation is considered to be the best form of teaching. If this doesn't happen, then this is a typical definition given by the students who are not very interested or who don't find interesting to attend the lecture. They say, who is a teacher or a lecturer? A lecturer is a person who has a very bad habit of speaking when someone is sleeping. So they just go sleep in the classes, and then we try to wake up, okay, listen to me what I am telling you. So this happens when the lectures or teaching is not very effective. Now here there are certain fundamental principles of effective teaching which we all have to know. I am sure many of us already know it. I am just either refreshing their knowledge or adding some amount of information to the existing knowledge. First fundamental is never go to the class or teaching without preparation. Now, this is a very important thing. Why I am telling you, particularly in Subharti, in my college. Supposing tomorrow I have to go on leave, I just search for a reliever just next to me. कि भाई कल तुम होगी नहीं हो, वो कहता हाँ जी मैं हूँ, तो ये साइन कर देना, मैं कल छुट्टी पर हूँ. Now, neither I have informed what is my duty for tomorrow, nor he has audacity to ask you what I am supposed to do in your absence. And suddenly what happens tomorrow, 2 o'clock, class representative comes, sir आपकी तो एक lecture था, sir तो है नहीं, अब कैसे करें? Oh हो अच्छा, okay, I am coming now. Now the person goes without any preparation. Now this distastes the students. So that is very important. Second is follow the simple rule of KISS. Now don't mistake it. KISS is keep keep it simple and stupid. Stupid doesn't mean the moron thing. Stupid means make it little humorous. So the more simple is your lecture, more students will be attracted towards this. Adapt the teaching to the audience. Now what we have to understand by this, that if we are taking lecture for a first year, our lecture should be defined in such a way. When we are taking lecture for a final year, our lecture should be modified accordingly. And then after taking 2 to 3 lectures, we should be able to identify, okay, this person is not able to understand, this person is quite sharp, he understands everything. Because this will affect our assessment process as well. Second fundamental is focus only the main point. Always tell that what they are going to learn in this lecture, we call it as a learning outcome. What they are going to learn at the end of this class. And then always link today's lecture with the previous lecture, what was taught last time, and then try to relate it. In other words, we can always call it as a vertical kind of teaching, where there has to be a sequence which is to be followed while taking the lecture. Just not that the total syllabus is divided into 10 lectures, and then here and there, whenever you want, you can take any lecture. So there has to be a sequence which is to be followed. The third one, because as I said that audiovisual is the most effective type of teaching, so the PowerPoint presentation has become very prevalent. In every class we utilize this PowerPoint presentation. Now, but there is a style of making this PowerPoint presentation. We have to handle this very, very clearly. Now the signage type of presentation, what we have to understand now, I have just shown it, New Delhi 500 kilometers. Now what is the full sentence? That New Delhi is 500 kilometers from Lucknow. Okay, this is the full structure. But signage type, it says New Delhi 300 or 500. So this is how we have to present our PowerPoint presentation. Second is a 7 by 7 rule, which is very simple. Not more than 7 lines in one slide, and not more than 7 words in one sentence, one line. That we need to follow. Then consider alternative. What does it mean? That means that even if you have a PowerPoint presentation, side by side you have to use blackboard, chalk, whiteboard, markers, some kind of thing, the alternative. It always, ignite students to learn more. So if you go to dental college, every lecture theatre we have a PowerPoint presentation, but then we have a blackboard and chalk which is always available. And I also prefer to have that, using that chalk also along with PowerPoint presentation. Fourth one is keep the slide consistent. Now I have seen many presentations where the first slide is black background, white. Second slide is red color and yellow. Now when you use these kind of inconsistent colors and then use a lot of animation which is popping up, this distracts students. So instead of listening to you, they just keep watching that slide. So it has to be absolutely consistent. Fifth fundamental is kindly focus on a main point what you want to tell. And main point, when you discuss these main point, always keep in mind that there are some kind of humors in between. Don't go with a very serious note with all tension appearing on your face. The students will not get to learn all these things. So this is also important. Sixth one is do not use jargons. Very technical language. We don't have to show that we are Shashi Tharoor, that we have to use a very, very different language which people don't understand. A simple language. And while explaining the new language, please try to understand the meaning. Tell the meaning to all. Because the literature says the students don't understand or don't remember the words which they don't understand. So we have to keep this also in mind. The seventh principle of teaching is do not discriminate a student. For us as a teacher, a student is a student, whether he is a male or female, he comes from what background, it should not be bothering us. For us, everything is all equal. And then in between, because we know there is a term which is known as attention lapse. After 20 to 25 minutes, a student's mind, it starts deviating. So after every 20 to 25 minutes, if you have a break, small break of 2 to 3 minutes, where you can tell your experiences, examples, so again will come into the main lecture form. Another important thing I have seen with many people, they just come near to the PowerPoint presentation or near to the screen and they just read onto the screen line by line and facing the back towards the students. This is not a good type of teaching, and students are not at all interested listening to those lectures. The next one is never be immobile. standing or sitting on one place and completing your lecture of 45 or 50 minutes. No, we have to keep walking. Okay, in the aisle area or in front, left and right, so that the students they can watch you also doing some kind of movements, hand movements, some kind of body language is also very important for the effective teaching. Now in PowerPoint there is also one big problem that we like to dim the light. Now this encourages students to go into a sleep mode or kind of hibernate. So they just look at the PowerPoint presentation, they just try to copy whatever is given. So we have to just verify, modulate our voice also and our body language also. In between we can always say in a break of 20 minutes, 25 minutes, okay, switch on all the lights, stand up for a while, and then you say, okay, switch off them. So the students will be alert. The 10th principle is, we have to understand that when we go for a teaching, it is not our only job. It is a job of students as well as the students. So it's a partnership. So engaging students also in this, it should never be a monologue that you are speaking and students are listening. It should be a dialogue. Okay, the response should come from the students also. So some amount of question answer must be there either in the middle or at the end of the classroom, end of the lecture. And sometimes, when we ask question in between, our flow get disrupted. So we don't like, students to ask in between. So at the end of the session also, you can ask certain questions. And there's a term which is known as response reluctance. What happens, the dim light, we are, just taking lectures for 40 minutes or धीमे धीमे बच्चे थोड़े से sleeping mode में हैं, they are just copying from the PowerPoint. And then in the end, when you start asking the question, they don't reply. Then you get disheartened, यार इतनी देर से हमने तैयार किया lecture, but then nobody is replying, means nobody has understood. So best way is just giving some kind of report. Okay, बताओ इसका आंसर बताओगे, I'll give you a pen or a toffee. So this response reluctance will go off slowly. So they will become alert. Okay, some kind of reward is to be given. Then once you finish the lecture, please do not forget to summarize your lecture in one slide. Do not forget collection, means the points to remember. That has to be given towards the end of your lecture. It is important that whatever you have taught over a period of 45 minutes or 50 minutes, 1 or 2 slides should be dedicated. These are the important points which you need to remember. So that is also important. And in the last, never go with a very serious face. You have to smile. Show your passion and enthusiasm in teaching. Until we are active, we cannot expect our students to be active. So it is a both ways. So you have to go passionate, you have to show your passion and knowledge, and then the students also will respond positively. So these are some very important fundamentals of effective teaching. Now this is what we are practicing in dental college for last, I think, 5-6 years. Everyone who joins dental college on day 1, this is a notice which is given to every person, and I just like to highlight what I have said in short, that every lecture, now we have 1 hour for lecture, but then we say we encourage, don't go beyond 45 minutes, and remaining period should be utilized for question answer. Then all lecture should be problem based. It is basically for the clinical base. Don't go like definition and classification and etiology. No, just go for problem based. Then you must include adequate photographs, some videos, some flowcharts. So that also generates interest in the students. And the 5th one is very important. The first slide of each lecture should have 4 to 5 questions taught in the last lecture. This is what I have said. There is a vertical teaching kind of pattern has to be followed. Even if you have not taken the last lecture, the person who has taken, you can just ask him क्या आपने पढ़ाया था, और उससे 2-3 questions, last time जो भी पढ़ाया गया था. So students will automatically be in alert mode. And similarly, the last slide, after you have summarized what was taught today, then you can ask 3, 4, 5 questions. Okay, जो आज हमने पढ़ाया था उसके बारे में आपको बता दूँ. Small break I have already told. Just after some time, 1 minute of break, लाइट को ऑन किया, खड़े हो जाओ सारे लोग, अपने को स्ट्रेचिंग करो, फिर बैठ जाओ. तो जो नींद आने वाला कंसेप्ट होता है वो थोड़ा सा कम हो जाता है. The important which I have highlighted with the yellow is those who do not reply correctly should be asked to sit in the front row rather than punishing them. Now it's a very common practice in most of us. I'm not talking generally, but yes, most of the people. तुम यार इतने 1 घंटे से मैं तुमको पढ़ाया, तुमको कुछ नहीं आता, क्या है दिमाग में? Where were you? What is the problem? No, this is scolding now. It becomes embarrassment for the students. So next lecture they will not come. They just skip the lecture. So instead of scolding the child or the student, you ask him to come in the front row next time. तो मेरे सामने बैठोगे. he automatically will be alert. So this is the practice what we are following in the day. Then the learning part, the purpose of teaching is to make someone learn, and whom to take learn, that means the students. So until we have that capability of making someone learn, our teaching is all go waste. So that we have to just understand learning has to come. Why? Because today's generation is very different from what we used to have. They are born and brought up with digital, with different kind of gadgets. They are very smart, and we all have experience. No, किसी मोबाइल में प्रॉब्लम होती है, हम अपने 10 साल के बच्चों कहते हैं बेटा उसको जरा ठीक कर दो, and he does it, and we don't know. So their thinking process is very different. The moment you ask question, I mean, it is my personal experience that you ask the question, something which was not given, just to see the knowledge, and students sitting now on the back bench, they just Google it and they inform you. So suddenly I thought that he knows everything. He is not that kind of person. Then later on I got to know that he just found out from the Google. So they are very different. So we have to adapt our teaching methodology in such a way. What is learning? Learning is a change in individual's behavior caused by experiences or self-activity. Now it's a technical language, but very simple way that learning is that the behavior is little bit changed. It can be intentional or unintentional. Intentional means that we have taught him in the lecture and person has learned, or we have taught some procedure, person has learned. Unintentional, I have given some project, and by doing that project he found out something else. So unintentional learning. Now there are two types we all know, the behavioral learning, and second is the cognitive learning. What is that? Behavioral learning is just by doing himself or herself. Okay, that is the behavioral learning. Now I think all of us must have read about the Ivan Pavlov's theory of classical conditioning. I am sure सब लोगों ने उसको पढ़ा था. Ivan Pavlov वाला, the person used to ring the bell, and then the food was there, and the dog in the distant area, he starts salivating. Okay, this was the same thing, and after some time he removed the food, he was only ringing the bell, and the dog started salivating. अगर हम इसको अपनी टीचिंग मेथोडोलॉजी पे, बिहेवियरल टीचिंग लर्निंग के ऊपर अगर हम इसको अडॉप्ट करें, so what is the ring? Ring is a teacher. The salivation, I will not say dog. The salivation is the student, and the food is the reward. Reward can be, in the form of kind. He is getting marks. He is getting well placed. So after some time, it will happen that the child will go not because of the record, but because of the ring. बड़ा कॉमन एग्जाम्पल कोटा में नाम के साथ एडमिशन्स होते हैं कि वो टीचर वहाँ पे पढ़े हैं इसलिए वहाँ पे आ रहे हैं. सो नाउ दे डोंट नो द रिवॉर्ड, बट एक्सपेक्टेड है बिकॉज इन्होंने लास्ट में इतने सारे रिवॉर्ड दे रखे हैं, बच्चे गॉट सिलेक्टेड. So that kind of learning we have to just create in the student's mind. So until we are a good teacher, after supposing I take lecture at 9 o'clock on every Wednesday, and then the students find it extremely beneficial that it comes in the examination, they get placed, they get the PG selection also. So after some time what will happen? 9 o'clock automatically students will come. The students will come and attend our lecture. So that kind of behavioral learning hai, that has to. Cognitive learning means that you are increasing the brain potential of students now. It is not observational. It is not observing. For example, we are discussing the classification of a particular machine. We are discussing a classification of a particular disease. It is not observed, but they learn. Definition of something. They learn because they are increasing their brain potential. Now, why I said that inspiration and motivation is extremely important. Once we learn these 8 stages of learning of students, the first one is a motivation phase. Until the students are motivated, they are not going to learn, they are not going to come to your class. And that is why I said that a great teacher inspires, motivates, so that you come to the class. So the moment they are motivated, they just come to the class and pay attention. This is the apprehending phase. Once they start paying the attention, they acquire knowledge, the acquisition phase. When they acquire knowledge, they remember also, the retention phase. And once they remember, only remembering will not be sufficient. So remembering, then during the examination they recall, okay, what was taught, the teacher taught it very nicely, so they can recall. And when they recall, then they generalize it. Means they just put all the information into the test or in copy or on some project. And then once they do it nicely, they get a good feedback or assessment that you performed really well. And as a result is a reward, which is the placement. So this is a complete cycle of learning what we have to understand. Missing or escaping one single cycle, this will disrupt the whole chain. That we have to understand. These are the types of learning. हम लोग तो NAAC में बहुत बार निखिल जी ने हमसे कराया है, इसके ऊपर सारा कराते रहो, ये भी student centric learning होती. All these learning we all know about it. But what the literature says, what is the best type of learning? The literature says the best type of learning is the experiential type of learning. That is learning by doing. अगर हम अपनी फील्ड के एग्जाम्पल लें, ना फॉर एग्जाम्पल एक ब्लॉक एनेस्थीसिया देना है मुंह के अंदर, ओके, नो मैटर हाउ इफेक्टिवली यू टीच इट इन द क्लास कि यहाँ से आपको सिरिंज लानी है, इस के ऊपर से लाना है, नीचे फील करो बोन को और यहाँ पे इंजेक्ट कर दो, स्टूडेंट विल नॉट लर्न until they do it also. When they come to the clinic, now you cannot do it clinic में डायरेक्टली नहीं कर सकते, तो हम पहले डमी पे कराते हैं, डमी के बाद हम उनको पेशेंट्स पे कराते हैं. So then they remember also, and then this type of learning is always experiential type of learning is always considered as a very good learning. Another example of teaching, if you relate, I am not sure about other colleges, but in medical and dental college, all postgraduates are required to take lectures for the graduates, at least 4 to 5 lectures. Now, what is happening? The common practice is हम पीजी को बुलाते हैं, अच्छा चलो तुम्हें 4 लेक्चर लेने हैं, तुमने लिया नहीं, हमने नहीं लिया, अच्छा तुम क्या पढ़ाओगे, उसने कहा जी हम ये पढ़ाएंगे. No, it's not correct. You have to find out the weakness of the student. That this topic is not good for this student. He doesn't understand. इस पे तुम topic लो. Go and take lecture. Take guidance from us. Take lecture. So the weak areas, उसके ऊपर जब वो lecture लगे, he will be well prepared because he know he has to speak in front of 100 people. So that learning becomes much better by doing. So experiential type of learning is the most effective type of learning. Then coming to the evaluation process. Now, evaluation we all know. The activity is undertaken by teachers or the students in assessing themselves and providing the information used as a feedback to modify the teaching learning activities. What does it mean? It means that whatever marks the student has got, now very common practice without naming anyone, पूरे batch को 30% marks दिए गए, और फिर what teacher says that nobody studies, now what should I do? Or the whole batch is failed. Why we don't want to introspect? There was some problem in us also. Probably we have not been able to convey our thoughts to students. As a result, the whole batch performed well, poor. So that is there. So this feedback is used not only for the students but also for the teachers, for us also. These are some of the tools of assessment. You can use it online or offline. We have theory examination. Different types of questions are asked. Then we have Viva OC and practical examination. Now, in other words, you can say the first two are pertaining to the cognitive skills, that how much a student remembers, how much a student has understood. Viva OC and practical examination is basically a psychomotor. You give some project, ask the student to perform, and then you have a internal assessment, the projects and presentation, etc. So formative assessment, we all know that we have this kind of evaluation during the course of study. If you have a professional examination or professional of 1 year, so we conduct, for example, in dental college, we have 2-term examination, first term at the end of 4th month, second term at the end of 8th month, and then we have a professional examination. Again, as I said, it prepares not only to students but also to us to modify our teaching methodology and learning methodology. अगर पूरे बैच ने अच्छा परफॉर्म नहीं किया फर्स्ट टर्म में, that means the problem lies in the student as well as in us also. So we need to, modify our teaching also. And summative assessment at the end of the year, we all know the grades are given, the rewards are given in the form of gold medals, the certificate of excellence, certificate of honors, and all these things. So this is the assessment process. Feedback is extremely important. I have been telling you again and again. And then assessment of learning tasks, to provide feedback to both teacher and students regarding their progress towards achieving the learning outcomes, how much they have achieved, how much we could taught to them. That is also important one. The feedback is to be used by teacher to revise and develop further instruction. That means that this whole year I taught, but then the result was not that good. That means we have to change our teaching methodology. We have to change our strategy so that the students understand this. There is another term which is not being practiced here, but somehow I must tell you, I give you my example only, that I have been doing for postgraduates. This is known as reflective feedback, where the students are asked to give feedback on their own performance, the reflective feedback. Now I tell you that in MDS examination, it's been almost 19 years I'm taking MDS examination, and at the end, I always give that sheet to student, that because you are the best at how you have performed and what you have performed, give your number accordingly. And I tell you, in more than 90% of cases, students give them less marks compared to what we had given. So it is a reflective kind of feedback. It is to be practiced in between. In the other form of reflective feedback can be, you can say that showing the copy. Okay, after the first term examination, the copy is distributed to all. You just see where you were wrong and then discuss with us. So that is also a kind of reflective feedback. So in short, the teaching, learning and assessing cycle is, first you have to just see the syllabus. Now syllabus is given by the apex bodies or the university or the regulatory bodies. Now what we do not read the syllabus properly until we read it. Now we have, say for example, in 1 year we have 70 hours of theory teaching. Okay, so the syllabus is to be very cleverly divided into 70 lectures, in such a way the whole syllabus is covered, and then the topics are chosen. Then you have to go for teaching, then evaluate the process and see the outcome, whether this, whatever we have done, whether it was okay or not. Outcome is based on two things. First, how much students have learned and how much students have rewarded for that. A BDS final year student has passed with 79% marks, but if he could not get selected for NEET examination, NEET PG examination, what we personally think that okay, there is a need to revise the syllabus. Those important topics have to be covered in more detail rather than all the topics covering equally. So that is also important criteria for that. Then coming to the last part, teaching, learning in an era of digital transformation. So many platforms have come. As I said, the teaching, learning remained the same. The only thing, the mode or the platform has changed. So a blended learning. Now it's a combination of online learning and offline learning. Now many times it happens in offline learning, you have a class at 8 o'clock, because of any reason, if the student is late by 15 minutes, he skips the classes. Okay, or because of health reason, he doesn't come to the class. So he is missing. In blended learning, what is the advantage? If you keep the online lectures also, he can view, he can listen, he can attend that class sitting at home, sitting at bed, even the hospital, who the person is admitted, he can attend the class. So this is the advantage of this. Disadvantage is that our generation, and maybe little senior to us, they are not very well versed of the digital technology. So the need for the training is very important. They need to be trained how to use these technologies. And second important thing in this kind of thing, that particularly when you take online lectures, it is a one-way traffic. The teacher is just discussing all the topics. Students are not, sometimes they just switch off the webcam and they just perform their own duty. They don't listen to it. So you have to be really interactive. In between, you can call any student, "हाँ बताओ भाई हमने क्या कराया था," and ask everyone to switch on keep your webcam switch on mode. So that is important, because students, we have seen, during our corona pandemic, then we used to take a lot of lectures, when the outcome was very less. When we asked them, they just opened the lecture because it was mandatory, the attendance was to be counted, and then they just sleep. So you have to be interactive. This is one of the disadvantages. Second is the Moodle and MOOCs type of courses. Now Moodle, I think Manoj will be able to understand, or will be able to tell in a better way. It's a software based LMS, and MOOCs are the online platforms. Now here it is basically for the distance education, those courses or those teachers who cannot come to Subharti to take lectures. Now we can always utilize these platforms for MOOC training or for online teaching. App-based learning has become very popular now. I have little idea about rest of the streams, but yes, as far as dentistry is concerned, one app which is free downloadable from Play Store, which is SOS. Now it gives you complete idea about how when the trauma occurs, what patient has to do and what clinician has to do. It gives you a complete updated guidelines also. Okay, what is the recent protocol? Similarly, there is another app which is known as Prezi. Now Prezi gives you a calculation of doses. Okay, you have to just give a little bit of history of the patient, and then he will give you, supposing I want to give a clavulanic acid, So it will give you, but just by asking 2 or 3 things, it will give you doses. Okay, this dose can be given for these many days. So these app-based learning is also very important. Now we have watches also where you can just see the oxygen saturation, the electrocardiograms, all these things. So this is also you can just utilize in the teaching methodology. Flipped classroom is another different type of learning. Now in blended platform we have like UGC has made it compulsory that 25% teaching has to be in online. But in flipped classroom we have a short lecture of 20 minutes. And we ask students to first listen to that lecture, watch that lecture, and then come prepared in the class. So when they come, they have already listened that lecture, they have already watched that lecture when they come in the classroom. So instead of a conventional teaching, we go with the interactive teaching. What are the problems which you faced? And then you can give the clarification. So this is also a very, very good idea of flipped classroom. Podcasts and vodcasts are the audio and visually enhanced systems. They are used in medical field. I am not sure about rest of the fields. And here also you can listen or you can just see it. These are all internet has to be a mandatory thing, and these are web-based applications where we can provide a lot of learning. Students know while doing jogging, they just put the ear pads and they just keep learning about a particular subject. However, only by learning what we have just seen in that bar diagram, that only 30% of the learning occurs, but still at least some amount of learning is occurring. Similarly, Vodcast is a visual advance where you can learn through these. Another important, very, very powerful platform is the webinars now. It used to be a dream, particularly before Corona, that the person sitting in Canada who is very well-known doctor and we would like to attend his lecture. Until he comes to Subharti or India, we are not going to listen to him. But now it is all made possible. The person sitting in Iceland, in England, in UK, and he can just deliver the lecture. The only problem with this is that it is only a one-way traffic, because most of the teachings occur, but the interaction is not much possible because of the time constraints. They have a limited time, and then because they are not physically present here, so sometimes the students or the listeners are hesitant to ask the question, and most of the time they say okay, you just post these questions in the chat box and we will reply to you. So webinar is also but another strong platform. And last but not the least, you must have heard one of my faculty members, Dr. Meerut. He is best in it. He utilizes more social media and web-based collaboration, whether it is Facebook, whether it is WhatsApp, in YouTube. You can share your thoughts, you can learn. Too many students know. Dr. Bharti is Subharti in Subharti, but then the person sitting in Chennai who knows Dr. he is a very good teacher, he can listen to him because he is now posting continuously his small short talks, and then he also gives, in case of problem, you just kindly contact me. So the web-based education has also become very important. The slide shares also. Now the PPTs are all shared, which are all free online available, and from all star words. Now I am talking about the dentistry and health sciences. Too many things are available, which students can utilize in that. And last but not the least, it is little far off, simulation-based teaching. The simulators. Now we do have few simulators, which actually it replicates the real-time situation, and this is particularly good where you cannot access ordinarily. As I told you, for example, now supposing you have to do a temporomandibular surgery, sir knows better. You cannot teach on the patient, but then simulators can tell you. We have a simulation lab in our dental college where we have created a kind of complete mouth with all the teeth, tongue, everything is there. So they can be taught, they can be explained and guided. This is how you have to do the case selection and case presentation. So this is also a kind of teaching. So in the end, these are some of my take-home message, that we have to understand that we are not properly trained to become a teacher. So training the trainers, the faculty development workshops, all are very important for us. Second, in this era of huge transformation, every second day the new concept comes, so we have to make this habit of learning and then unlearning and then relearning, because whatever I have learned today, tomorrow it may not be applicable. So just unlearn it and again relearn it. Follow the fundamentals of effective teaching. I have just discussed there are 12 main fundamentals of effective teaching, and what we have to understand, it is immaterial if you are very knowledgeable, but if you cannot dissipate your knowledge, or if you can convince, you cannot motivate your students to get the learning, so then as a teacher we are failed. And then adapt to the changing era of digital transformation. We all have to train ourselves to become little techno savvy, utilize different kind of gadgets, so that the teaching and learning can be enhanced, and be a passionate teacher and multitasker. Why I say this? Passionate teacher, as I said, until you are able to motivate your own students are not going to be motivated, they will not come to your class. And multitasker, particularly in Subharti, you are a dean, you have to do administration, you have to do teaching, you have to do clinical, you have to do NAAC work, you have to do NIRF work, everything you have to do. So you have to be multitasker. So that is also important. So, sir, once again, sincere thanks to you for giving me this opportunity to share whatever little I knew, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you all for patiently listening.